What's that? Okay. I'd like to call to order the Monday, October 24th, 2022 Services Committee meeting. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 19th meeting by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkin. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Approved. I entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Mr. Pegg. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Start off the resolutions with the Youth Bureau. Alexa Backus. I just announced that Mr. Arquette is excused this evening. He has a job-related issue that he needs to attend to.
Good evening. Good evening.
Let me give you the first resolution, okay?
Yes.
It's authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the Office of Children and Family Services for the 2022 Youth Sports and Educational Funding Grant and modifying the 2022 budget for the Youth Bureau. Moved by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Ms. Terminal. Go ahead.
New York State legalized mobile sports wagering in 2021 and established that 1% of the state mobile sports wagering tax proceeds be used to support grants for sports activities and education for youth. And so a fund was created under the Office of Children and Family Services, OCFS, for the purpose of providing annual awards to support sports programs to underserved children ages 6 to 17. And each youth bureau was provided an allocation for youth sports and educational funding, YSEF. And the St. Lawrence County Youth Bureau was awarded $9,424. Sports improve the lives of young people by promoting positive social, emotional, health, and educational outcomes, along with furthering important lifelong impacts. And so this award will increase our budgeted expenses for the Youth Bureau by $9,424.
Questions or comments? Mr. Akers.
Ms. Backus, are there any programs that you're offering that educate kids about betting?
That what?
That educate children about gambling and betting?
No, we do not.
So this is just, this is just ridiculous. I mean, here we are, we're siphoning money off of the state that, taking advantage of the citizens. Now they're giving you a little peace prize of giving $9,000. There should be a component, if this is what we're doing, that we should be able to educate these kids about the dangers of gambling.
We actually have a convention coming up the first week of November in Albany for the New York State Youth Bureaus. I will provide that feedback. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. The second resolution is authorizing the chair to sign contracts with Little River Community School and Girls on the Run, upstate New York, for youth sports and educational funding and the Youth Bureau. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Akers. Wow.
The Office of Children and Family Services has made a resource allocation plan funds and revenue available to provide youth sports and educational funding, YSEF, and various agencies have submitted a request for a proposal for youth sports and educational funding through the Youth Bureau, and the following organizations have been approved for the total of $9,424. Little River Community School and Girls on the Run, upstate New York, both for $4,712. The responses to the RFP were limited to organizations that carry nonprofit status who could deliver improved services to youth in St. Lawrence County. And the allocation committee, part of the Youth Advisory Board, reviewed the RFP responses and recommended Little River Community School and Girls on the Run, upstate New York.
Questions or comments? Mr. Akers?
Where is Girls on the Run?
It's in Potsdam. And so they're working predominantly with students, girls, grades 3 through 5, and it's an 8-week program. And so through the course of 8 weeks, they are leading up to a 5K at the end of the 8 weeks. And they do have a curriculum associated with it.
No boys allowed?
I don't think they would rule out boys being allowed, but I know predominantly it is for the girls.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Regarding the educational funding, is that tied to youth sports and educating them about youth sports, or
yes.
Is there any other educational items that they touch on, any curricula or anything like that?
For both programs, Girls on the Run and Little River, I know that healthy lifestyles and sports education are associated with both of those.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank
you.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for the Youth Bureau for grant funds from the Office of Children and Family Services. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkins. Go ahead.
The Youth Bureau received grant funding from Office of Children and Family Services, and the budget is split between youth development programs and advocacy and training. And these funds will be used for youth development programs and youth sports and education funded programs. And so we're asking that the board of legislators authorizes the treasurer to modify our 2022 budget.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign contracts for youth development grant programs for the Youth Bureau. Moved by Ms. Fiaco, seconded by Mr. Fay, Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead.
The Office of Children and Family Services has made resource allocation plan funds and revenue available to provide youth development programs, and various agencies have responded to a request for proposal for youth development program funding through the Youth Bureau.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Terminelli.
I'll need to recuse myself from the vote due to an affiliation with one of the organizations listed.
So no. No, no. Mr. Akers?
I see what's not all the towns are actually applying for this. Is it a difficult application? Is there just no interest? Are there specifics of how the money is to be used?
The application process is a little bit meaty. However, we provide ourselves, we make ourselves available to provide support for anyone wishing to apply. Perhaps lack of interest or just no interest. We were pretty excited in the fact that you see some newer names on here based against our 2019 needs assessment survey. We saw that youth in St. Lawrence County, you know, they're interested in sports programs, but also a lot of interest in arts and computer programming and STEAM-based programs. And so we were able to provide some STEAM and arts programs this year.
So what do? You send out an email or is it telephone call to the various committees?
Everything. Press releases, emails. We have updated contact lists. Thank you to our fantastic Youth Bureau secretary. And we do make phone calls.
Do you have any feedback of why people aren't applying?
The past few years, especially since COVID, we've had a lot of transition in staffing. And I think that's made it really difficult. So with new directors coming in for, you know, various sports programs through towns and villages and so forth, we certainly try to connect and develop working relationships so we can provide assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alexa, I see the distributions are not equal throughout them all. How was that determined?
We have an allocation committee that is a subcommittee of our youth advisory board. And so they look at, you know, a variety of different things, but I do know one of the things that they do look at is the size of the programming and who is being serviced. So some programs are a little bit more substantive with a lot more kids based against other programs. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Anything else, election? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we'll look at social services and then Commissioner Seaver. While he's coming up, the first resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for social services for administration, heat, Medicaid, child care, foster care, and general service. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkins. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this resolution is a budget modification designed to address the fact that there were some higher than expected costs in the areas that were listed above: administration, heat, Medicaid, child care, foster care, and general services. Of note is the largest of those increases had to do with adoption subsidies, and there had been a question for a pre-committee as to what that entailed. So there are a couple different things that go into that I just kind of like to explain a little bit. First being is that a little over a year ago, there was a lawsuit that indicated that the reimbursement rates and subsidy rates for foster care had to be increased. We met that, but that also includes children that go into become adopted too. Those subsidies there have to increase as well. The other thing that we have to take a look at is the number of adoptions that we had, and I want to toot the horn a little bit of my staff and of Mr. Button's staff in terms of getting these adoptions taken care of. In all of last year, we had 34 adoptions, getting kids out of care. This year, so far, as of today, we've had 44 adoptions, and we have another 16 packets pending. So we've had the increase in costs and an increase in the number of adoptions. That is reflected here in the increase in costs. So that is where we're at here. So this, again, this resolution is to modify the budget to adjust for those increases.
Any questions? Mr. Rick?
Mr. Seaver, are the legal costs for those that are adopting children, are they covered by the county, or is there some expense incurred by the actual foster parents, adopting parents?
Yeah, they are reimbursed by the state. Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution? Aye. Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a lease agreement with the Irrevocable Spousal Trust FBO Richard E. McGinn for space located at 280 Main Street, Messina, New York. Moved by Mr. Smithers, seconded by Mr. Burke and Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this board knows that we just had our 1-year anniversary in the Ogdensburg office, and it has been a resounding success, both on a staffing level and with the services that we're providing with the community. As such, we have been exploring expanding our services again to different parts of the county. We have a number of needy people that have difficulty transporting themselves here to make use of our services, and it's easier for our staff to get out to different parts of the county to provide the services in person that they need to. So with such, we've looked at this parcel, this property next to the Harrogate Plaza in Messina. I think it will serve our needs very well, and this resolution is to ask the chair to be able to sign that lease effective November 1st, we're hoping, with a targeted moving day of January 1st.
Question or comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the statistical portion of your presentation.
Well, I'm going to deliver the first portion of it and then turn it over to my staff to deliver the remainder. Prior to doing so, I would like, if with the chair's indulgence, to introduce our new deputy commissioner, Mr. Douglas Hamilton. Hamilton's here. I extolled his virtues at a previous meeting, letting you know how qualified he is and how happy I am to have him here. He will be assisting with the presentation of some of the statistics when we get to that point. So welcome, Doug. And so the first of the metrics I'd like to take a look at are the 3 CPS measures that I generally talk with you about. The charts the graph that looks like this, that I believe is separate from the other statistics packet. The first of which being percentage of workers with more than 15 CPS investigations. I am proud to say that we've seen a dramatic decrease in this. The information you have from the state comes from August. We're always a month behind or so there. As of the end of August, we had a drastic drop from 74% of our workers to 56%. We're going to see that drop even more, and I am very pleased to announce that the average caseload for a CPS worker has gone below the 15 threshold, and we are around 10 right now. And we have done that by our staff putting forth an incredible amount of hard work to close all of those overdue investigations that we're going to talk about on the next slide. There's been a lot of effort put forth there. So we're definitely, you can see the trend line in there moving in the right direction. The second chart is the percentage of overdue investigations. Again, we saw a decrease from 47% to 40%. That's going to be drastically lower when you see in September and October statistics. I'm actually very excited for those to come out so I can present those to you. And again, there's a lot of hard work that's been done there to get us to that point. The final of the three metrics I'd like to talk about is the percentage of timely safety assessments. Once again, safety being of utmost priority, and we are at 99%. We are, if not the top, we are close to the top and leading the state in that metric. And again, that is reflective of the supervisors and staff placing a high priority on safety and getting those assessments done in a timely manner. So, are there any questions on these three metrics before I turn it over to Ms. Rand? Mr. Burke.
Joe, did you have a number on the number of caseworkers with more than 15?
I believe, do you have that in your packet? If I don't have it with me, I can get that to you first thing tomorrow morning. But that number has come down. I don't think we have anybody as of today that has more than 15 overdue investigations. I think everybody, the worst that we have would be in maybe that 12 to 15 range. We have a few there that are still coming down, but our average caseload is at 10. So, you know, those overdues have really come down.
Mr. Burke, I posed that question to Mr. Seaver here some time ago, the prior month. The answer was 2.
Any other questions before I turn it over to Ms. Rand? All right, thank you very much.
Go right ahead. Ready.
Okay. So in looking at the social services data for the month of September, beginning as we always do with Child Protective Services, for September, we saw 150 new reports come in through the New York State Central Registry for a total of 321 new unique children that we are working with. Last month, there was 141 reports with a total of 326 additional youth. So when I looked at the month of September through 2019, we have averaged approximately 147 to 164 reports. So we're right on track at 150 this year. We look at the number of, or the percentages as far as indicated, unfounded, and family assessment response. For the month of September, 195 cases were closed. 67% were processed through, or excuse me, were unfounded, and 10% were indicated. 23% were processed through family assessment response. These percentages continue to fall in line with what the agency's expectations are with the changes to the New York State Central Registry reform that occurred in January. So we did expect to see a decline from the average of 15–16% for indication rates. The state, or excuse me, the yearly average continues to remain about 15% for indicated, 68% for unfounded, and 17%, as you can see, for family assessment response. Commissioner Seaver already already noted the 99% completion rate for the safety assessment for the month of August. Again, OCFS is a month behind in providing that data to us. And not to be repetitive, but again, we'll note the average CPS caseload is 10 for the month of September. Last month, we were pleased to inform the board that the average caseload had dropped to 15, which is the top of what OCFS recommends. And through the closing of the additional cases, along with having additional staff to spread out those cases, the new cases coming in, the caseloads have dropped to an average of 10. If we look at the number of cases that were closed, or the total number of cases that are open currently in Child Protective Services is 345 for the month of September. That was 425 for August. There are a total of 195 cases that were closed in September. In August, 278 were closed. This brings a total of 473 cases or investigations that were closed within 2 months. We look at the average cases per month by unit. That average is 9, falling from 14.6 from last month. And you will see if you look at the average cases closed that the unit that does have the highest number of cases is also closing the highest number of cases per month. The average is 5 cases closed a month per unit. Last month it was 8. The month of September saw an increase of 5 children in foster care to a total of 260 from 255 in August. The agency has been receiving more complex and serious cases. The number one allegation outside of inadequate guardianship, which is somewhat of a catch-all, has been parent drug and alcohol misuse, along with child drug and alcohol misuse, and lack of food, clothing, and shelter. There were 12 children that were added to care and 7 removed, for that net change of an increase of 5 children in care. The overall average of children in care, however, continues to decline from 289 in August to 286 in September. The average number of days children have been in care has actually remained the same for September, 780. However, those without an adoptive resource fell slightly to 705 days in care as opposed to 709 for August. The average caseload across foster care and preventive units continues to be 9. It was 9 for the month of August as well. As we look at the breakdown per unit, most of the units are pretty evenly, the cases are pretty evenly dispersed. I will note that unit 5748 has mostly new employees, so we do start them very, very slowly with receiving new cases. The average across the units of cases being closed is 1. Number of cases closed will typically be very small, as most cases are extended for 6 months and 12 months at a time and are often court-ordered services cases. The number of home finding changes, we have a net loss of 1 kinship home. So we have 3 home finding staff, and we saw 1 kinship home close for the month of September, or a net loss of 1, excuse me. The average number of children in home receiving services, 137. These are children who remain in their home, are being provided preventive services to the children and families in order to prevent the children from coming into the foster care system. In August, there were 140 children receiving those in-home services. We continue to work with the representatives from Family First through the Office of Children and Family Services in order to increase our opportunities and service options for families seeking preventive services. After December, as you may recall, St. Lawrence County Department of Social Services will be adding the differential response program to the cases that we'll be processing. Those are for the youth under the age of 12 who committed crimes that would have been considered, juvenile delinquents. If we look at our number of adoptions, we did only have 1 adoption for the month of September. There were 8 in the month of August. However, there have been at least 6 for the month of October, and as Mr. Sieber mentioned, there are 16 packets pending with the court. Our Family First metrics, as you may recall, St. Lawrence County must be below 12% for the number of youth that are placed in institutional or residential care. We are currently at 5% and a yearly average of 6%. St. Lawrence County must be above 50% for youth placed in kinship foster homes. We are currently at 55%, and our yearly average is 57%. So we have met both state and federal guidelines since the implementation of Family First. Our supervised visitation program, we have 183 cases that are receiving supervised visitation for a total of 597 visits. They are spread out through the Department of Social Services, the Youth Advocate Program, and Family First. The number of hours being provided from those 3 programs total 871 hours per month. Currently, 75% of those hours are being provided by the Youth Advocate Program. I will note that we are currently down 2 homemaker or visitation positions. So we're in the process of filling those. Once those are filled, I would expect that to decrease drastically, and that the department will be picking up a larger majority of those visitation hours. Looking at our homeless placements for the month of September, we had 34 unique individuals as compared with 31 in September of 2021. We did do an analysis of some homeless numbers and data in order to report to you maybe a little bit more information about who is being placed through the department, perhaps what their source of income is, and how they're presenting to our agency. So we looked at the months of August and September. We had 100 inquiries. Not all of those individuals were placed. They were screened out for various reasons. 3% of those individuals were employed. 1% received child support. 26% received unemployment benefits, and 1% received Social Security benefits. When looking at where those individuals had been staying prior to reporting homelessness, 20% were staying with family and friends. 8% had been discharged from a hospital or a rehabilitation center. 10% were leaving incarceration. 3% were transient or coming from out of state, and 6% reported other places they had been residing. The number 1 reason for homelessness based on those 100 inquiries was addiction at 23%, and needing to flee domestic violence situations, 12%, the 2 highest reasons for people reported for being homeless. I just wanted to also note that 3% reported being veterans. In looking at our adult protective services cases, we have 171 total cases. We have 4 adult protective caseworkers, and we have 2 additional personal care staff who help to support those staff by handling some of the referrals that come in. And I believe the commissioner will be mentioning a report on the findings of the most recent state review of the Adult Protective Services Unit. Looking at our staffing, we have 2 individuals in training that are in foster care preventive. 1 will be complete in January, 1 will be complete November 18th. They are both placed in foster care preventive units. We have 1 in training in child protective services. That individual will also complete training in January. We have hired 3 caseworkers. All will start in November. And there is one position in foster care preventive left to be filled. And we have one individual from Child Protective Services that will be completing their employment with us tomorrow. So we will have one vacancy for November. And I mentioned the 2 homemakers or visitation staff that we are working on filling those positions currently. Regarding child support, 38 total new petitions were filed by our child support unit for the month of September, as compared to 48 new petitions for August. The St. Lawrence County Child Support Unit collected $1,069,074 based on their current child support orders, which does not include the additional 38 petitions that they have filed for individuals within St. Lawrence County. Includes money.
Any questions so far? Mr. Burke? And Mr. Aker?
There, couple of questions. The number of children in foster care, do you have a breakdown of how many we are providing provision for versus the children's home in Jefferson County?
Not off the top of my head, the exact numbers. I know I looked at that not too long ago and we were split, but I will get the exact numbers for you.
Well, if I could follow up, I guess the question is I'm wondering at what point can we modify the contract children's home of Jefferson County that we might be able to take over some of the foster care places that they now have. And you know, if you don't have it now, Heather, that's fine. We'd like an answer to the question so that we can see an end in sight to a contract. And the other thing, maybe 2 other things, turnover. You talked about new employees. Are we still losing a fair number of employees? Do you have any turnover? And again, if you don't have it off the top of your head, you can give it to us at another point in time.
I don't have the actual percentage of the turnover rate. I will say that it certainly feels like it's decreased. Certainly seems as though we are not seeing the turnover that we had when the caseloads were higher.
And exit interviews, I'm wondering, are the exit interviews, who conducts them? Is that just is that a self-administered type of thing where the employee has a series of questions, they fill it out, or is it an actual interview, and it's who conducts it?
Sure. I know Commissioner Sieber conducts the exit interviews with individuals currently, and I believe they are given a paper information to complete, but it is a face-to-face interview as well. I would refer to Commissioner if there's anything additional.
What's that?
Well, I just say I'm a little uncomfortable. I'd like to make sure that there's no bias. And again, Joe, I have the greatest respect for you, but I think if we want to know why people are leaving, it should be done not between an employee and an administrator or supervisor. I would encourage that we look at that process and see if we can't remove any perceived pressure. I don't think Joe would ever place pressure on anybody. But again, it's a different relationship when you're being interviewed by the department.
Do you have any suggestion on what type of person or what individuals, where would you be looking to get that person?
I'm not sure that I would ask for a person at all, Joe. I think I would just have a series of questions and the opportunity for the employee leaving to talk with someone if they so choose. But I think to remove any kind of bias, I think it would be just helpful for them to fill out a form asking you know, why you left. Is it a better opportunity, or is it too much pressure, or whatever the case might have to be. It just, again, no reflection on anybody who's conducting the interview. Just the fact that it's being done between an employee and a supervisor or an administrator can skew the results. So I'd say, and maybe we could ask around. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I just have a little concern as to whether you can count on that 100% or not.
So, Mr. Seaver, you have what Mr. Burke has asked. Any issues with that?
I have no issues with that. I have some suggestions in mind. Talk over with my supervisor with our human resources department.
Fair enough?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Up to now, Mr. Akers.
Thank you. Well, I'll just make one comment is in Ogdensburg, we have nobody's left in over a year. So it's a spatial problem in some capacity and geography of being in that location, less congestion. So I think less hectic work environment. I know when we interviewed people for the probation director, people on the resumes that had been caseworkers lasted for a year. Virtually everyone, did this mile-long stare, they just couldn't handle it. You're talking about people who are abusing their kids, they're in filth, they're hungry, drugs are in the home, and there's only so much of that I think that some of these individuals can deal with it. And to say, you know what, this isn't for me, I can't sleep at night, it's affecting my family. Well, then you got some really people that can do 25 years of it, which are really, really, really strong people. I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned the differential response for juvenile delinquents there on page 5. Can you explain that, please?
Essentially, what New York State Office of Children and Family Services is asking the Department of Social Services across New York State to do is to start to handle all of the youth who are under the age of 12 who would, in a family court matter, be determined to be a juvenile delinquent or have committed a crime that could make them eligible to be a juvenile delinquent. That finding in court. So essentially, the department has to provide 6 months of services or until the youth turns 12. Separate and apart from our normal connection system, but to basically ensure all referrals are done to all services that the child or family may need, that coordination and follow-up with all of the services is provided. And essentially those children will no longer be going through the probation process, is my understanding. They will be referred to the Department of Social Services, and that the referrals can come from multiple sources, not just law enforcement or probation. So it's unknown exactly how many of those there may be.
Well, do you have the training? Does DSS have the training to deal with these juveniles who are a criminal element? They've expressed that under the age of 12. I mean, sounds like, okay, we want to keep them. It's almost like our alternatives to incarceration, which never meets. I don't think you guys are you assigned to that, John? Have you ever met? Once. So, I mean, this is almost the same thing, but now it's laid on you. So are you receiving, will be additional training? I mean, will you know how to deal with this element?
So we're starting a series of webinars actually tomorrow that will help move through the process of creating a program, submitting, funding, things like that, and how it's going to be actually documented, because again, it's not going to be in the regular system, because once the child turns 12 or has completed their time in the department, it's held in confidence, separate and apart from a normal case. Children that we deal with oftentimes have behaviors. They have perhaps behaviors where they have committed or do commit crimes. So this is not out of the realm of what we do by any means. And there would be certain crimes that would probably disqualify them for this type of program.
And if they reoffend before the age of 12, does it change? You just continue to deal with it for that 6-month period?
I don't know that they've been completely clear on how many times you allow them to do that, but my understanding is that unless it is a particular crime, then they would require it to go through the differential response.
Okay. Another question is, you know, these institutional and group care things are really very expensive. And so we're at 5%, but that's still 14 individuals. But you don't really have any control over that. They're in this institution. Do we have any say as to how long that individual is in this institution, or can we impact that? I mean, how can you control that you only have 5%? It's just luck of the draw that at this time we're at 5%.
So we have a requirement, and of course we always try to place at what we call the least restrictive level. So we are always looking at any possible options for placement prior to their residential level of care. With the Family First changes, we know that we have to have the qualified individual, the person that does the actual report on the youth and determines that that is the appropriate level of care that is needed for the youth. Many of the residential programs have specific timeframes on their program. They're a 6-month program or an 8-month program, but with qualified individuals and qualified residential treatment programs, it was done in mind of trying to reduce the length of time that youth are spent in residential programs. So, and it's all, they're required to follow those guidelines and have trauma-informed programming. And there are also many case meetings, programming that's done in conjunction with the local district and the caseworkers that are working with the family.
So it's calling for a lot of collaboration between the family court judge, DSS, legal, and your office.
Very strict and specific to guidelines and court dates.
And I have, Mr. Chairman, I have just one final question. You mentioned, I believe it was that of the homeless placements, 3% are unemployed. We're employed. Is that correct?
3% were receiving unemployment benefits.
Okay.
So that was their source of income.
Okay. Was any of the homeless actually employed?
Yes. 3% were employed.
Okay.
And it was 26% were receiving unemployment benefits. So.
And so what type of action are we implementing for that, for those that are employed? That are there disability issues or physical or mental issues that are the whole gamut?
We don't have that data in the form that they complete.
That's concerning. There's, 30 individuals that are homeless. Okay.
Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heather, I just wanted to say that for quite a while now, the department, your department has gone through a lot of turmoil and management changes, and you've had to carry an awful lot of burden for a long time. And I just want you to know that we on the board appreciate the way you stepped up and did so much for so long. And thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Hager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would agree with Mr. Reagan. You've done a phenomenal job. Thank you. My question goes back to the homelessness. We had a problem in my community over the summer with some people, older people that were homeless. And I'm wondering if the new remodeled or renovated school in Ogdensburg has become a place where you can place people, because it's lovely. And I know they have special services and stuff there. That's all I was wondering.
Well, is it possible to defer to Karen? Because I know she knows the answer to this.
I'd love to hear from Karen.
Okay. Well, I did attend the ongoing homeless that many from the department are involved in. Those units are completely full right now, so that all 18. So all of those organizations, especially all do talk and find out what is available.
Just quickly follow up, if I may. Is the quarry in Potsdam on that list? I know they have some very low income housing available, but it's the converted Snell Hall on the Clarkson campus that's downtown.
I believe so, and I don't remember what organization.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke.
Heather, you mentioned that cases are more complex. There's more drug interactions. Is that had to do with length of time children were in care, or the number of children in care, or both?
I think it can have a direct impact on the number of youth coming into care. Addiction is a long-term service need. I think what we have seen is, along with all other service organizations with COVID, you're seeing increases in the need for mental health services, increases in the need for substance abuse services, and that's not different for our families in the county. That help?
It does. I guess I'm wondering about staff training. If if the cases are becoming more complex, does it require a higher level in service or cooperation with, say, our communities? Or I already know you do that, but I guess I'm wondering, how do you wrap your arms around more cases? How do you help us understand what the cases are more complex? All the rest of your data points are pretty self-explanatory. That one is, other than making a statement, might be kind of hard to quantify.
Yes. Say more complex cases, more difficult cases, more serious cases. I think I'm hopeful that with the caseload being lower, we have an increased opportunity for more specific, targeted, and strategic training around a lot of those areas that you're talking about. We have more senior workers who typically handle very serious cases, specific sex abuse cases, things that don't typically would not go to new workers. So we try to be very strategic in how we assign cases that are serious in that nature because of the training that has been provided, but having the lower caseload numbers is also going to give us an opportunity to add to that.
Anyone else? Go right ahead. Michelle?
You got eligibility now?
Yes.
You got the eligibility? Yes. Good evening. I'm Karen Calden, so I'm over most of all of the assistance programs. So we have an update on the number of cases, which shows that temporary assistance, we're currently at 566 open temporary assistance cases. I apologize, my glasses too curved. So I can't even read that. 7,145. And the Medicaid cases are just over 10,000. The heat cases, again, the numbers show 4,153, and that I do want to point out is just a heat case alone, and a majority of the regular heat payments are usually issued on the SNAP and the TA case. So corresponding the number of individuals in each one of those caseloads. Temporary assistance, there's 542 individuals active. SNAP, we have 12,786 individuals active. Medical assistance, there's 11,218 active. temporary assistance for families. Currently, there's 247 active TANF cases, so that's the federally funded temporary assistance cases. And then our safety net, which is also referred to as a cash assistance to needy individuals and families. We're currently at 332.
Mr. Chair. The numbers seem to indicate a rather dramatic drop in the number of people on temporary assistance and needy families, as well as even safety net. Over the past couple of years, what do you attribute this reduction in the number of people who are coming to the county asking for assistance?
Looking at the numbers, some of it is there was much more need during the pandemic, and now that we're coming out of that, and so some of it is definitely contributed to that.
You know, because I think a lot of times the public has this impression that people come and get county assistance and, you know, continue that for the rest of their lives. Often these numbers seem to indicate that they come when they hit that crisis point, and then when the opportunities arise, they try to seek employment or other assistance.
Correct. There's a lot of assistance that goes along with anyone that's in receipt of temporary assistance. There are so many programs that we help them find federal benefits that would replace the temporary assistance. We would help them with the employment services. We help them with referrals to for substance abuse treatment, so on and so forth, to help these families live themselves.
Thank you. I think it's just something that a lot of times the public is never really aware, and they just think, oh, you know, we're just providing handouts for everybody forever, and sometimes, you know, families hit crisis points and turn to the county for help, and then are able to get back on track and, you know, take care of their loved ones.
Mr. Akers.
Actually, I think the data is in contradiction, because if you look at the increases in the SNAP, medical assistant cases, EAP is running flat. So maybe what is happening to these individuals or families are actually making do with those little bit of assistance, food, medical assistance, some eating, that they're not actually in those categories of temporary assistance to needy families.
Yeah, they're becoming more and more self-sufficient.
So there still is a need, a little supplemental action versus the permanent or the 5-year plan. Thank you.
Anyone else? Move right along.
So for the month of September, there were 427 staff applications and 201 temporary assistance applications. And you can see that that is then an upward trend, which is normal for this time of year. If you go back years and years, it does normally in the fall increase those applications. The report on safety net families. So this is showing the number of families that are receiving safety net assistance. So that would mean that they are over the, they're over their 60 months lifetimes of the federally funded temporary assistance. So there's 55, and of those 55 families, there are 16 that actually have what we call a sanction of some sort, whether it be an intentional program violation or they're not complying with employment services. Next is just a snapshot of the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program by zip code. So that does show our highly populated areas, of course, are going to have more active cases. The Disabled Client Assistance Program. So there was a total of 12 applications, and I apologize. 6 reconsiderations and 2 appeals. So that program is very dependent. Those numbers, it depends on what Social Security schedules the hearings for. So she really doesn't have much control over what the the next chart shows the amount of the reimbursement received for interim assistance that was paid out. So those dollar amounts are amounts collected from supplemental security income or Social Security disability federal benefits. So that comes back when we pay back any temporary assistance that was paid out while it was pending approval of their federal benefits. Then next we have the child care assistance payments. As you can see, there was $82,229 of full-time child care assistance payments paid out, $12,593 of part-time payments. And so 3,700.
12,593 part-time.
And I just wanted to again mention, as I did last month, that we are already seeing and we'll see a large increase in the payments going out. There's been a huge increase in the eligibility limits for this program. It has gone from 200% of the federal poverty level to 50%. There is going to be a lot more things available child care assistance, which is wonderful. You know that it helps families. Next, in the fraud investigation unit, there has been year to date over $100,000 of dollar amounts referred to the district attorney's office. There is just over 60,000 of recovered funds. So those are funds that could be from whatever year that has been received by the accounting in there. And the cost avoidance for the fraud that was processed was over 180,000 that was saved. And I would like to also mention that for the month of September, there was actually 62 referrals to our investigation unit. That it has been increasing steadily. Because there was a large decrease during the pandemic, so that is starting to come back around. Home energy assistance program. The regular home energy assistance benefits are opening on Tuesday, November 1st. We will start getting applications out. So far, that unit has received 979 of the early outreach certifications. And I'm how that unit has, only 9 of those are not, haven't been reviewed. So we don't. What needs to get done for opening day. And for home energy repair replacement costs, this is only through July, and there is a delay in the reporting on that through the state. So far for the past season, there's been $120,166 spent on furnace replacements, 41,424 on repairs of furnaces. And there is a large increase in the benefits of that program for the season. So last season, a furnace replacement was limited to 6,500. The state has increased that to 8,000. And the repair costs were limited last season to 3,000, and that's going up to 4,000. That should be very helpful with the rising costs of everything. And I did want to mention that our heat unit has set up some informational sessions. So we've been working with the Office for the Aging, and we will be reaching out to the neighborhood centers to see if they would like us to come out and give them presentations on what the program has to offer, and also safety practices.
Mr. Forsythe has a question.
Yeah, back to the energy repair. How is eligibility determined? How do you, is there a wait list?
So they would have to complete an application and an interview. They would need to own the property.
Okay, but someone that's already receiving heat benefits, you have
yes, they still have to be income eligible for home energy assistance.
Okay. But and you just do it right at the office, or?
Yeah.
All right.
Ms. Curran.
Thank you. So St. Lawrence Gas and Messina have like a furnace rental program where you can rent their equipment. I don't know if it's countywide, but in instances like that, do you ever take that approach to rent the equipment?
Not usually for furnaces, no. There is some assistance available for propane tanks, but we don't usually rent, we replace or repair.
Go ahead.
Emergency rental assistance program for the month of September. The number of payments are just over 400 of the total payments. And as you can see, most of those were rental arrears. And from June 1st, 2021 to September 23rd, 2022, there has been over $2.5 million paid out of this program by the state. And currently they're still processing applications that have been submitted through August 31st. If there's more assistance available, they will be looking at processing applications received after that August 30th.
Mr. Simmons.
Rental assistance, does that money go to the landlord or the renter?
That goes direct to the landlord. And that's through New York State actually administers that program. But I do like to share the information with you so that you know the amount of that assistance that's coming to them.
Okay.
So Medicaid applications, there have been 30 for chronic care and 28 for community Medicaid for the month of September. And the active individuals by age, most of them are adults. So 88, 28 are adults and 21, 19 are children. And there's not much change in that. And as you can see under the active Medicaid, supplemental security income versus non-supplemental security income recipients, about a quarter of the Medicaid, active Medicaid in St. Lawrence County is actual individuals in receipt of supplemental security. And the next graph shows the active Medicaid disabled versus non-disabled individuals. So there's currently 5,629 individuals that don't have a disability determination. 5,323 are disabled. And the last graph is just showing a breakdown of those in receipt of personal care Medicaid. So that has not changed dramatically since last reporting. And the only thing that the supervisor asked me to remind you is that the personal care caseworkers have been cross-trained with the adult protective services caseworkers as they serve many of the same clients, so that both units are now cross-trained and can help.
Any question? We'll start with Mr. Ganesha.
Sharon, thank you. First off, I want to say that furnace replacement or repair, very thankful for that because one of my constituents able to take advantage of that last year. Somebody who was trying to heat their home with their oven and space heaters and so. But the other thing I have is, and you may have covered this earlier, but what is the maximum total maximum amount that anyone can receive first?
For any particular program or
for the home heating assistance fuel oil.
Okay, so the regular benefits have increased this season also. So deliverable fuels, which is oil, kerosene, or propane, the base benefit is $900 this season. Deliverable fuels, which is wood, pellets, coal, or corn, the base benefit is $635. And the utilities or municipal electric heat, the base benefit will be $400. In each family, there's a regular benefit available. There's an emergency benefit. There's clean and tune. There's repair replacement programs.
One more question, if I may.
Sure.
In regards to the $900 base benefit, I guess that was a figure that I had heard. But with fuel oil, it's approaching or it's at $6 a gallon. 150 gallons fuel oil is $900. I have one person, it's just one person on my home delivered meals route. Their total income per month is $900. So there's a lot of folks that are in need, and I just don't. I don't know how we're going to get through this. I don't know how we're going to reach everyone because there are some people, and this particular person, we talked about benefits and said, well, there's people that need it more than I do. And we're going to have longer in our working poor.
Certainly.
So I think anything we can do to get this information out to as many people as we can would be helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Akers? Put your hand up.
Yes, Karen, what is the poverty level? What's the rate? You know, you talked about the child care assistance payments, and so you mentioned that it's now gone to 300% of the poverty level. So we have a rate per individual, then it's broken down by families of 4, stuff like that.
Yes, and I
know two-person family was around 54,000 per year.
Poverty level.
What they would consider the eligible
for that 300%.
Yes.
The average household.
And I think for child care assistance for like a family of 4, it was like 84,000 somewhere.
So these programs, I mean, there's a smorgasbord of different things here. Is it mostly federal and state dollars? What would be the local percentage? We're actually kicking in some. Are we not?
Yes, most of the time, it varies by program.
Sure.
The heat dollars are 100%. It's covered.
The child care assistance, is that a state program? Through Medicaid? Is that a Medicaid?
That is through the Office of Children and Family Services, okay. And it's through the Block Grant. So that is 100%.
State funds. Thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else? Mr. Burke?
Karen, number of people on Medicaid. If I'm reading the chart correctly, it looks like it's a little over 10,000. But that doesn't, I don't think that captures the whole number, because some people don't, some people may be eligible for Medicaid and wouldn't even apply for it unless it's emergency. Is that true?
Well, what I should point out is this is active with the county. This is not counting the individuals or cases that are active through the New York State of Health Exchange. So these are only the numbers that are active with cases at Department of Social Services.
So it's just the partial number, is what you're saying.
It's not all of the active Medicaid individuals.
It's pretty revealing. It's over 10% of our, I mean, just this number, it's over 10% of our population.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. She was going to present the information about the corrective action. Good evening again. We'll let them continue until it's finished, and then we'll take down the question. Okay. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give you as much information as possible, as briefly as possible. So let me see if I can combine those two. So we have 19 points to our corrective action plan. When I came before you last month, I believe we were 42, 46%, somewhere in there completed. As of today, of the 19, we have completed 15 of the recommendations. The other 4 are either close to be closure or are going to be ongoing. So in the interest of time, I won't get into every single point for you, but I will hit some of the high points for some of the items that I think were a little bit contentious that maybe came to your attention leading up to the report. The first one deals with our conflict of interest policy. As you're aware, when the bond deal audit was concluded, they sent a template for a conflict of interest policy. We've taken a look at that. We used that one, which was based on an amalgamation of policies that they received from other departments and from OCFS. Went through the process of making sure it fit our department, and as of today, it's been as of a week ago, but it's been implemented. We have 100% acknowledgement from all the staff, so we are moving forward with that. So our issue of conflict of interest policy has been resolved, hopefully once and for all. because we now have a policy forward with that. While I'm speaking of policies, number 6 was the policy repository that we talked about. The need for us to gather all of the policies that we have in one place and make sure that they're accessible to all the staff. Towards that, we have created an intranet site for our staff. Policies are being placed there. It's ongoing as new ADMs and directives come out from the state, from other government agencies. They've been placed there. They all have hyperlinks, so all of our staff now have access to that. So there is no longer an issue with having to search for the appropriate policies and procedures to use. Going back, number 5 was our work from home prohibition. I had hoped to have a presentation to bring to this body by now, but that is not the case. There is some further discussion that needs to be done. We're trying to decide on the best model that works for the county and for all of our employees, whether that's a hybrid model of working out of the main office and working out of our satellite offices or some of our drop spaces. There's some conversations yet to be had between my office, the county administrator's office, human resources, and our CSEA union. So that's kind of ongoing, and as we continue to flesh that out, I will be bringing that before this board again. Just trying to make sure I hit ones that would be, I think, of the most interest. We've already discussed our reduced caseloads and the practices that we put in place for that. We're continuing to work with area schools to get information out there for possibility for new, for recruitment purposes, for new caseworkers. We're continuing to look towards resolving the mobile technology issue. I have some numbers that I'll be bringing to the county administrator tomorrow to take a look at to make sure that we complete that one. That's one of the ones that is still open. We are also leaving open number 18, which has to do with case tracking. That's not that we haven't done the work on it, but I think that that's something that should be ongoing and then possibly never close, because I want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can in our power to track all the cases and track the kids to make sure that we have good documentation for where they are and what's been going on in those cases. So that's going to be an ongoing thing rather than say we're done. The majority of what we are doing here, when I say that we've closed out some recommendations, it's not saying that we've completed the task and we're never going to look at it again and it's done and we're not going to. We've reached a point where we've met the recommendations for the corrective action plan as was recommended by the Bond Deal audit. But these are items that we are going to continue to keep an eye on and continue working on. It is everything we do from this book, from this binder that I have here is a work in progress. And it's going to continue to be so we can make sure that we're not in a place where we have to come back and have this type of conversation ever again. Was there anything behind this story that we can think of that we talked about? 17. Yes, that is our the tracking I just talked about. So we are creating some documentation and some processes for tracking children's movements as they come in through the CPS through the foster care program to make sure all their placements, all of their treatment, all of their different interventions that we do with them are tracked. And we have that in one place rather than having to look at the different case files and the different data systems. So we have all that at our fingertips. So I do want to commend my staff. We have a number of work groups that are ongoing. I have a policy group that I believe I am not going to dissolve when we're done with this. That's going to be an ongoing issue. They're going to meet regularly. Mr. Hamilton has been appointed. He's going to be doing periodic reviews of all of our Title IV funding cases to make sure that that those determinations are made in a fair and unbiased manner in an ongoing fashion to resolve any concerns regarding that. So these work groups, we established them with an eye towards completing the work that had to be done, but I really like the work that they're doing, so I think we're going to keep it for a while. So we have those checks and balances and those systems in place to make sure that we're staying on top of things. Is there anything that was contained in this that anybody has any questions about? Mr. Burke.
nothing that's contained, but I guess I'm wondering, what's Title IV?
So Title IV is a funding source, and regarding when kids come into care, and we're talking about our foster care.
And I think one other question. Policies and procedures. Sure. Are staff comfortable with them? I mean, do they know how to access them? Is it easy to look up the policies clear? I guess I'm wondering, when anybody talks about policy and procedures, you know, I've heard people say, if you want to make sure that it's not seen, put it in the policy and procedure manual. So I guess I just wonder how usable it is, and have you obtained any staff feedback?
I think it's very usable. It's we're putting it out there in an area on our internet where other items that they would be needing are there. So I think it's very accessible. We're relatively new coming into this. I haven't received a lot of feedback on it. I will be soliciting that. As far as the clarity of the policies, a lot of them are directly coming from the state. So as clear as they write them, where they are, at risk of having to go and rewrite them all to clarify them. I think that the policies are there, and we will continue to educate our staff and work with our staff as we go forward to make this as helpful a tool as possible. It's a growing document.
Thank you,
sir.
Anybody else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
If I may, sir, I have one more.
Go ahead.
I meant to share with you earlier, and I looked in my other binders, I'm going to run over and grab it real quick, the results of an audit that we had regarding adult protective services. I think it's important to share the good and the bad, and this is good. So we received an audit from state OCFS regarding our adult protective services unit. I received this back today, and just as a quick summary from the Office of Children and Family Services, it states the diligence, professionalism, and commitment of the St. Lawrence County APS staff was evident in the progress notes and service plans of the protective sample cases reviewed. The identified risks in these cases were addressed, but refers to community agencies and were available St. Lawrence County resources. Based on the ratings in the attached summary report, there are no required actions resulting from this practice review. They got an excellent audit, and I would like to extend my congratulations to my adult protective services staff for the hard work that they've been doing. We recently relocated them to another office, and they've had some changes, but changes are ongoing, but they've done a tremendous job. I would also like to notify this board that we have another audit coming up the week of November 14th. It's an OCFS audit, and it will be addressing financial claims made in the month of February of 2022. And we'll get the results of that audit. I will share that with you as well.
Questions or comments? Okay, wore us out.
Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Next, community services, Mr. J. Ulrich.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jerry. The resolution modifying the 2022 budget for community services for funding received from New York State Office of Mental Health and St. Lawrence County is passed through funding to approved agencies. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Smithers. Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so this is an amendment to the downstream provider budgets. We get different state aid letters throughout the year that have increases on them. So this is for OMH, and it reflects increases probably till about the end of August. We've had 5 amendments from the state aid letters so far this year. And actually, since the time this was written, we've gotten 6 more amendments to the state aid letter. So we will be putting another resolution through for OMH next month as well to reflect the increases for state aid money.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is modifying the 2022 budget for community services for funding received from New York State OASIS to St. Lawrence County as pass-through funding to approved agencies. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkins. Go ahead, Jay.
Yep. So this is a sister resolution for OASIS state aid increases. Unlike OMH, thus far, we've only had one amendment from OASIS. We're not sure if we're going to get another one between now and the end of the year, but this will bring us up to date for the OASIS increase in state aid funding for the downstream providers.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Coordinated Care Services Incorporated to prepare the 2021 Consolidated Fiscal Report and modifying the 2022 budget for community services. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkins. Go ahead, Jay.
So earlier this year, the Board of Legislators adopted a budget allowing us to contract with CCSI to help us prepare for the CFR for community services clinics, as well as review the downstream provider CFRs before submission to the respective O agencies. So we lost our fiscal officer back in, I believe it was June. So we lost her for 4 or 5 months. So we circled back around with CCSI and they gave us a quote of an additional $5,775 to amend, that would be needed to amend the contract to do the work in the absence of having a fiscal officer in place. So we're paying this increase through the salary lag of the officer. I mean, in addition, OMH is trying to play catch up with the CFR closeout. So they started 2018 last year. They moved right into 2019 for this year. And there's talk of them moving right into 20 and 21 CFR. They're combining those CFRs because of COVID. And prior to that, they were doing withholds for 2020 that was reimbursed to them in 2021. So they're going to be combining that closeout soon as we move forward.
Questions or comments? Mr. Akers.
So this is in reference, Jay, to the 2021 CFR. We're 10 months into 2022. When was this due? This report.
The 21 CFR, we've already handed that in. So that is done. So we're now preparing for the rest of the 2019 closeout and for 2020 and 21. And we're also reviewing the CFRs for the downstream providers as well for 2021.
So we're actually closing out 2019 also. Did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, we're handing in 2021. That's not going to be closed out this year, but they also are playing catch up with 2018 and 19 closeouts. And then they're going to prepare and move into the 2020 and 21 closeouts.
Okay, I didn't realize there was such a delay. Okay, thank you.
The delay is on the OMH side in terms of closing them out, not with the submissions from the county or the downstream providers.
I'm agreeing with you, Jay.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with DrugScan to provide lab services for the opioid treatment program. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Burke. Go ahead, Jay.
So this is a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with DrugScan for the OTP. Now this, they used to go by the name of ACM Labs, so they did a name change and it's now Drug Scan, but we've been using ACM Labs for years for our addiction clinics. And ACM would actually not charge clinic for that services, but they would bill either Medicaid or commercial insurances for that. According to the Medicaid policies and regulations, they are not allowed to bill insurances. Rather, that's something that has to come out of pocket from the OTP. And it's kind of on the guise that, or on the premise that the OTPs make enough money to be able to sustain this cost. So the annual fee of $20,000, that's an estimate that it might cost the OTP for a yearly fee for this service. That was based on Credo, who has probably twice as many OTP participants as us. But that's what we used as an estimate. We were assuming it's going to be less than that. You know, we can bill insurances for the fentanyl strips for individuals to take with them when they leave, but we cannot charge insurances or the individual, if they're self-pay, for the lab service, the toxicology services in relationship to OTP services.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Akers.
So Jay, is it common, or is there a percentage of our methadone users that get Credo? Do we know how many individuals are actually using additional drugs to enhance their addiction? Or does the methadone satisfy the addiction that they are not seeking out alternative substances?
I mean, I don't have those numbers. I don't know if we really track those numbers. You know, I will say that it's a mixed bag. I mean, some of them, you know, are really invested in their recovery and are not using street drugs. And there's others that are simply using marijuana. And then others are also continuing to use methamphetamines along with the Suboxone and or the methadone that we're providing. So, you know, it is mixed. But, you know, Oasis still has, you know, the self-directed care, and that we are to continue providing the service regardless if they're testing positive for other substances at this point.
Oh, so it doesn't disqualify them then from treatment?
It does not. And it's really a part of harm reduction, because the alternative would be if we cut them off, they may go out and get street drugs that are laced with fentanyl and then overdose and have a fatality. So,
yeah. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Ms. Curran.
So much of the reason that we do the PMPs when we're doing that is so that we know what drugs we're combining. Some of your SSRIs and other things will create potential issues with your heart, and you don't want to be putting somebody on this plus their other medication, plus if they're using cocaine or if they have something else like that. So I've never seen anybody be turned away for MAT, but you sometimes, like if someone has a lot of cocaine in their system, you might see the psychiatric provider discontinue like the methamphetamines that they give them, like Adderall and things like that, because you're two stimulants. If you're going to dose your own on the street, then we're covered at the trade.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jay, I just want to thank you for your efforts to work with Riverview Correctional Facility to provide the medically assisted treatment for their population. At this time, the New York State Department of Corrections in Albany doesn't want to disturb their current supplier, you know, from Credo, but the superintendent at Riverview appreciates your efforts, and now he's informed his superiors that the service is available to contract with St. Lawrence County, And he's hoping that perhaps at some point in the future, something, can work out. The advantage to us would be that this would help distribute the cost of the treatment, have the state pick up more of our costs. And so I just want to thank you for your efforts, and we'll continue working on it from both sides. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Is that something that you think he'll reach out to me, or should I anticipate reaching out to him?
If Albany ever, gets around to changing its mind, then they'll be reaching out to you. But your efforts to make them aware that the service is available here in St. Lawrence County, and that you are interested in working with them if that's something they want to do. That was what Riverview was hoping for, and they will continue. They would like to work with you because going to Canton to pick up the medicines and bringing them to Riverview is a lot closer than driving to Watertown during the winter months. So they would really like to prefer to work with the county. But at this time, until Albany gets around to making a change, we'll just have to wait and see how it goes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke.
Just a quick question, Jay. Do we have anybody in our prison system, the county prison system, receiving opioid treatment besides Suboxone, methadone?
Besides Suboxone, we did have one methadone individual, but they were released. So we did give them at least 1 or 2 doses, and we were working on a take-home dose, but they were released the Friday before the weekend. So to my knowledge, you don't have any current methadone in there, but we do have Suboxone patients. And those numbers are increasing, is what I have been told.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is renaming the St. Lawrence County Community Service Mental Health Clinic to St. Lawrence County Mental Health Services. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Burke. Jay?
So much like Oasis did a year or so ago, OMH is asking for a name change. They no longer want the term outpatient clinic associated with mental health services. So they did pass an amendment to Title 19 of the state plan, and then released that amendment in August of this year. So this is a resolution reflecting a request to change the name from St. Lawrence County Outpatient Mental Health Services to St. Lawrence County Mental Health Services.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is accepting the Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Abuse Program, PASAP, grant, and modifying the 2022 budget for community services. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Ganesha and Mr. Burke. Go ahead, Jay.
So the Justice Department released another comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse program grant. We call it in-house COSUP 2. We applied for that, and we received that award in September for almost $1.3 million. This money is to expand and enhance the opioid treatment program. Like the last grant, we had an in-house kind of grants manager. We had a civil service title of fiscal manager. We've changed that to fiscal officer. But that over the 3-year period of the grant will cost about $230,000. We also, in keeping with the request from the feds, we need to include other community providers. So again, we asked Seaway Valley to participate in this to do enhanced peer services, community-based peer services, and additional harm reduction, which would be Narcan distribution over a 3-year period. So that's approximately $275,000 of the grant. We also put in part of a nurse salary and fringe for $126,000 over the 3 years. And then just OTP expenses of $560,000 for things like rent, maintenance, office supplies, medical supplies, medications, bus tokens, computer supplies, advertising, and so forth. This is kind of a preliminary budget like we did the last time with the cost of grant, or that one's still actually going on. There'll be almost a year overlap, not quite, between the two grants. We may choose to amend the budget from time to time to meet our needs, but this is a preliminary budget for that grant funding.
Mr. Burke.
Jay, who wrote the grant?
It was a combination of Shayna Smith and Heidi Ames from planning, and then I reviewed it.
It's just a comment. I'd say it's very impressive, and for our staff to bring that kind of money into St. Lawrence County, you deserve a lot of credit, all three of you. And thank you.
Anyone else? And I think we can all agree to that, Jay. Great job. The next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with, oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Excuse me. The next resolution, authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Seaway Valley Prevention Council for the Rides to Recovery program and modifying the 2022 budget for community services. Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by Mr. Perkins and Ms. Haggard. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, so yeah, Seaway Valley worked with the Volunteer Transportation Center and OASIS to come up with the Rides to Recovery program. Now, it's a little atypical program because we have the MAS transportation and the St. Lawrence County public transit system, and then the first mile, last mile. This money is more dedicated to getting people to and from employment opportunities, to education. It's really for non-medical appointments. It could be, to a grocery store, things like that. It even could be for some recreational outings. So it falls under the guise of social determinants of health, those things that are lacking in a lot of the people that we serve's lives, that they are unable to participate in because of transportation issues. So there was some some OMH funding that we had. The match, well, it's not a match, but OASIS for this, it's kind of a pilot program, is putting in about $42,000. So we asked OMH and subsequently the CSB if we could move some state aid monies around to support this same effort on the mental health side, as a lot of the people who are receiving mental health services also have addiction service needs, and they concurred with that. So we're asking for approval to move $43,672 for this purpose. Obviously, it's at the end of the year. We probably won't spend this down in full for this year, and it will not carry over till the end. Will not carry over to next year, but it will be in the state aid budget for next year moving forward to support this program and to support the recipients that we serve. So we do have a window of time prior to the closeout. Once the CFR is submitted, if we have some outstanding funds from this $43,000 and there is a deficit, and a similar funding code. There's some particularities with being able to transfer monies from one one fund code and program code to another in the OMH state aid system, but we may be able to later come back around to use some of this money if it's not out, if it's unallocated by the end of the year.
Any questions or any comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Jay, you're going to present us with some information on the 1011 electronic health record.
Okay. So I'll start with the good news. We are getting reimbursed for billing on the mental health side and on the Article 32 addictions clinic sides. We are still struggling with the OTP. We have gotten reimbursement for our methadone dispensing. We are not getting reimbursement as of yet for our Suboxone dispensing. So we are, right now, we are a little over, we're 90 days and 1 week out. So we have not billed for Suboxone. So for the first week of that we were open for the OTP, if you recall, I think we had 2 or 3 individuals that week. We've lost approximately $700. So we're working closely with 1011. They're saying that they are going to start running the batches this week because, we are paying them right now to do the billing. So we're keeping a careful eye on that to make sure that they follow through with their commitment. In terms of some ancillary things that we were, I guess, they were in the contract, was some on-site implementation. So thus far, they've only come on site 1 time. And there were supposed to be several other occasions where they were going to come on site and provide some hands-on training. That has not happened yet. So the mobile access for the providers, whether it be from an iPhone or a tablet, we haven't been able to set that up yet. So what that means for our providers, instead of carrying a smaller tablet, they're having to take their laptop with them in case there is a need for an emergency refill of prescription. I have on here the Power BI, which is an enhanced report function that we paid for. We had scheduled training for that several times and they canceled that, but I will say they did come through last week and provided the Power BI. And that will greatly assist us for preparation for the Board of Legislative monthly updates. Right now, we're having to tally those by hand, which is fairly time consuming because the reports don't reflect the numbers that we show on pen and paper. So the medical billing, the revenue cycle management, we went live on July the 18th. They just started providing those services for the billing in September. So there was a 2-month lag on that we're not happy about. There have been some incorrect coding problems that we didn't get assistance for. So we had to fix those, as well as there were some missing location codes that we had to fix. There was some incorrect reimbursements amount, meaning the amounts that we were billing insurance companies did not reflect the full amount of reimbursement. So needless to say, there's been some problems. It is a moving target. They are being somewhat receptive, but not as quickly as we would like. You know, we're still hopeful that this is going to be a better program than the one we had before, but it has kind of gotten off to a rocky start. I mean, you know, they did have a merger or a takeover, and my understanding is they did lose a lot of employees during that takeover or that merge, and that's really reflected in the level of responsiveness to our requests for more training and more help with the coding, particularly with the OTP.
Ms. Terminelli and then Ms. Kerr.
I have two questions. The first, can you just remind us exactly how much this contract costs with 1011 a year?
I don't have that exact amount per year. It's about $3,500 a month for the EHR, and it's about $3,600 a month for the billing. IMA was about twice that when they were doing our billing and for the electronic health record.
And as a follow-up to that, what is 1011 prepared to do to, I guess, the breach of contract on many different levels, right? So what is it that they're willing to do to make up for it?
Well, I mean, we're kind of picking from the top of the pile in terms of the things that we need as a priority. Like, for instance, we'd like to have kiosks for the patients, like a patient portal, and that has not been set up yet. But, you know, right now we're really focusing on getting the OTP billing straightened around. You know, we've had conversations with them. It's a little bit of back and forth in terms of who's to blame. We had an administrative services manager that left. So there's kind of a convenient out for them on that level. You know, I have not used the word breach yet. I've had some preliminary conversations with the county attorney, but nothing, you know, in terms of, you know, moving forward with any action at this point.
I guess we get what we accept.
Anyone else? Ms. Curran.
My questioning was sort of along the same line. If they're supposed to be providing a product and they're not, and we're not getting our billing and we're behind, and we can only be so far behind and then we can't get our billing done, at what point do we say we're not paying you anymore because you are in breach of this contract until you do A, B, C, and D? It's not about what we'd like to see in the future. It's about they need to fix what it is they're doing right now for us to continue to do anything with them, is the message we should probably be sending.
Understood.
Mr. Smithers.
Jay, you commented that it's a lower cost than our previous provider. Could you compare the level of service that we received from our previous provider compared to the present service, even though it was more costly?
Well, I mean, we certainly struggled with IMA. I mean, we never really did get, you know, the accurate reports. You know, we had to go back and kind of peruse through, you know, our own records to make sure the numbers that we came up with when we were doing the reporting out for them was accurate. So that was a difficult situation. They did not work the denials like they said they were. A lot of that was done in-house. You know, IMA was, you know, and I guess similarly, I mean, trying to kind of build the airplane while it was in the air. So it was always a struggle when we put work orders in to get those done in a timely manner as well. So, I mean, there are similarities for sure. But in terms of where this platform can take us, once we get fully trained and fully implemented, we think it will be able to take us to a higher level, you know, of reporting and hopefully billing and bring the billing back in-house.
Mr. Akers.
Sounds like a complete debacle. It's half the money, and for this half the money, we're getting actually nothing. Is there a solution at hand here? Are other counties actually using some other service that's providing the necessary means so that we can fulfill these contracts and get the proper billing, get reimbursed?
Jay would have to answer the other question with regard to other counties using 1011. I think there was a thorough competitive process. I'm not sure we ended up with the vendor we were hoping to go with. I think that the important part is, as Legislator Kern pointed out, getting those bills paid that have been filed with them. That has been the task at hand. We do have some talented staff in the department who have gone above and beyond, I think as they did with IMA, that are working to help us get through this, but they are what we have until we don't. We've looked at contract, we've looked at that word that Jason Katie hasn't used yet, but we're trying also to get this online. So strides have been made just in the last week to the clinic function, which wasn't the last knowledge that I have. So I do think they have their attention, but I also would call your attention to how many aspects are going on in community services right now. And we know that date is 90 days, 1 week. So we're very mindful of that. And that is why it's on your agenda tonight, to keep you informed and also to continue considering options that we're looking at how to get this going. Starting over again is not attractive either. Because this has been a lift, as you all know, since July, but long before that. And at least as Jay shares with me and some of the clinicians that I've spoken with, if you could write your own program is about the only way it would work the way you want it to. And so now trying to work with what we have and what we have a contract for until it isn't resolvable, we will continue working on it. We will bring that to you if we need to go in a different direction.
So are you saying that every other county is experiencing the same thing?
Jay, can you speak to what you understand to be 1011's experience in counties that have it as their electronic health record?
Well, we reached out to Saratoga County, and they had been working with 1011 for quite a while, and they felt it was a usable platform. We reached out to Essex County, or excuse me, no, it was Clinton County. I forget, it's the executive director is Connie Willie. So we've been working with her staff because they also are been using 1011, and they came on site to actually look over our configuration and setup. And they have been helping us with that. And likewise, they're going to need some help setting up because they're expanding into I believe OMH services. They provide addictions treatment. And so basically we are working together with them to support one another through this process to try to make this work. So it's a mixed bag. You know, some are able to work through the shortfalls and make it a functional electronic health record, and others are still struggling.
Ms. Hager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jay, you mentioned that you'd had preliminary conversations with the county attorney and whatever word we're not allowed to use. You know, that one. Without getting into litigation or the suggestion of it in open session, is there something that he could be providing? And I guess I could, if I may, Mr. Chair, direct that to the county attorney because I don't know what you mean by preliminary, but
is that something you're comfortable with?
Generally speaking,
well, if you're going to come on.
In fact, we're going to make it to the entire evening without having to hear from you. So
it just wouldn't be the same.
I hate to disappoint. We'll be spending a lot of time together later.
Thank you.
Yes, we have had a great opportunity to discuss it. I've had an opportunity to review the contract. Obviously, have a vendor that's not performing to the extent that one of our department heads is interested in. That's the first thing we do is go through the contract to identify what our strengths, our weaknesses are, and where we may be able to leverage those strengths to get performance in a fashion that we believe is consistent with the ultimate objective of the contract. In that vein, I've had those discussions with Jay, I've had those discussions with Ruth. But naturally, one of the discussions that always arises when you're discussing a breach of a potential contract, and I don't mind saying it, flesh it out there. Whenever you're talking about the prospect that someone is not performing in the fashion that they're supposed to, the ultimate conversation is driven by what happens if we take these steps. And I still think that that's something that Jay and his team are trying to formulate, because we don't want to dislodge any current relationships for an uncertain relationship in the future, something that may not produce at the extent that we're at. This may be, unfortunately, even in a less than ideal circumstance, better than nothing. So we are, I believe, cognizant of the pitfalls of potentially moving forward and declaring that word quickly without having some type of alternative solution to us.
Thank you, Mr. Button.
Yes,
Mr. Burke.
Jay's kind of in a tough spot right now. We've lost a week, if I heard him correctly, we've lost a week's billing because it's a week over 90 days, and that's all we can go back for. And so I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's good to hold them accountable, but we're a little bit over the barrel here. I think, and I'll just say that about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I think Jay was in a meeting when we had a consultant come into community services, and I think that was the early days of IMA, who said that mental health and substance abuse were the most complicated billing platforms out there. It's not like physical health care. And it's always stuck in the back of my mind, and not to make any excuses for this company, because they claim to be able to do all of this. So, but I think it's helpful to remember what the people that we hired as consultants have told us, and that's that it's a very complicated billing protocol. Is that your recollection, Jay?
It is. I mean, particularly with the OTP, because we're looking at bundled services. And, you know, that's something that 1011 is going to have to set up in the background. That's something that we cannot do. You know, in the interim, you know, we can do what they call APG rates, ambulatory outpatient units or groups. Instead of the bundled, it'd be easier to do the bundled. So, you know, I'm not exactly sure which direction 1011 is taking us right now, you know, in these, you know, just to get the billing done. But with the OTP, it is bundled. So we're like, if we do an induction, it includes, you know, the initial psychiatric assessment, includes the medication. It includes, you know, any other ancillary services we provide that day, and it's bundled for a week at a time. So if they are getting daily dosing at the end of the week, we would bundle all those together and send that particular patient's bill out in one quote unquote kind of lump sum. So that's certainly new to us. But, you know, we're trying to fully understand it and be able to work on that, you know, billing platform.
Anyone else? Okay, Jay, you want to move right along to the mental health and addiction services report?
Okay. You know, just as an overview, again, this is you know, these reports now are a hybrid of both 1011 and IMA, depending on what period of time we're drawing the data from. Like I said earlier, a lot of the 1011 productivity that you're seeing on the first page was tallied, you know, by hand by the program directors. So you know, I'm hoping that, you know, given our current circumstances, this is, well, this, you know, in my estimation, this is as close to accurate as we can produce right now. So, you know, the no-show rates, you know, they have gone, you know, slightly back up on the addiction side, but dropped a little bit on the mental health side with an overall increase of about 0.7% for this month. The average counselor visits pretty much staying flat. You know, all clinic averages last month was 5.09. Again, we're at 5.43, but in July we were at 5.6. So it kind of goes up and down, but you know, there's no huge standard deviation from the mean, you might say. In terms of the weighted face-to-face, on the addiction side, we're now at 62% of their face-to-face billable time. Last month, we were at 65.5, so that dropped a little bit. Conversely, on the mental health side, last month, we were at 70.4. This month, we're at 73.7. So in terms of the prescriber visits, they are up a little bit from last month. The first bar is our part-time psychiatrist. She rose from 8.0 to 11.5. You know, again, you know, some of that has to do with no-show rates, cancellation rates, and so forth. So, you know, it is up this month, but who's to say what it's going to look like next month? The smaller column is for the locums. Last month was 9.6. This month is 10.5. So Ruth wanted me to speak to what the locum is costing us. So from the period of June 6th to October the 4th, which is a 4-month period that we had a locum provider who has since left the agency, and we had to replace that locum with a different provider. But during her tenure for those 4 months, the locum's fee were $30,000, $30,271. What we potentially can bill for is $30,000, $30,450. So, you know, it's kind of a break even if in fact, you know, we are able to get reimbursed, you know, like we have been in the past, you know, around anywhere from 90 to 95% of the reimbursement for services billed. On the mental health side, regarding the wait list, we do have a wait list of 53. We have hired a fairly seasoned licensed mental health counselor who will be starting November the 1st. So for the most part, we will be able to absorb this waiting list into her caseload when she comes on board. You know, it'll be a little bit of a protracted process. We're not going to give her, you know, 50 new clients, you know, the first week, but we will be, you know, doling them out to fill up her caseload over time, hopefully within a month or two that, you know, that will diminish the wait list. You know, it's hard to say what the wait list will do once, you know, she is up to the same level of cases that the other ones are, which is ranging anywhere from 90 to 105 different cases. Whether or not, you know, she will max out and we will resume having a wait list again, we'll have to wait and see. In terms of the services provided for all clinics, there was a little bit of an uptick in May of 2022. And likewise, there was also an uptick in the billable services that were paid for the July of 2022. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Mr. Smithers.
Jay, in regards to the wait list for mental health, previously you expressed knowledge that alternative providers also had a wait list with various other ones throughout the county. And is that still the case? And you were asked to start some availability for access for people that were interested in services to be able to maybe on the internet or some other place to get information about availability. Could you give us an update as how that's going?
Well, I mean, there's been some preliminary discussions in terms of how we would set some sort of an internet-based, internet-based site up. In terms of, there being an apartment, like a real-time apartment finder, like listing that this agency has this availability, would be rather difficult because it would require the cooperation of, of all the clinic providers throughout the county. So we're looking at different alternatives, to post, on the internet and or our website. But, I haven't really moved 100%, or I haven't really moved forward with that given, everything that we've got going on. But we're trying to just assess what that might look like and how we could accomplish that right now. We have, been making some phone calls to other agencies if in fact someone does not, necessarily insist on being on our wait list. Try to give them other options for services that may be available in a more timely manner. Like I said previously, in terms of the wait list, I haven't done a recent inventory of where other providers are at, but if it's anything like community services, it's probably still very much the same, not only in our county, but across New York State.
Awesome. Anyone else? Mr. Akers.
Well, the term was called the Community Bulletin Board. In talking to Rick Johnson, he'd be interested in help setting that up. In your position as the LGU, are not these other entities, do they not have to report to you as if you requested them? Do you have any authority as the LGU with these other clinics, whether it's Citizen Advocates or United Helpers or anything else? I mean, we've got 53 people on this waiting list.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when I reach out to them, they give me the information that they want to give me. I'm assuming that it's accurate information.
Are they interested in participating in this community bulletin board? Have you communicated that idea out to them? Because I mean, it's almost like if we have a county site that has a community bulletin board where that these different, I think there's 11 different units here that provide mental health services, I think was told, that their numbers are available and that they could list what their potential waiting list was, the time period where they could get somebody in. I would think that it would be advantageous to them that it would be free advertising on their part to for somebody that was seeking some of their services.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think most would cooperate. I mean, I don't know about real-time appointments, but in terms of generically how long it may take for them to be able to be seen, unless it's a crisis situation, they would certainly be available or be willing to give ballpark figures on that.
Could you give us a time period as to when this could evolve into to meet the resolutions request as creating a community bulletin board? What kind of time period are we looking at, Jay?
Well, I really hate to say, maybe in the next 3 months, we might be able to try to pull something together. I'm not sure if there's going to be any cost involved with this yet. That's something we got to look at. And I don't know if we want to outsource this to an agency that's familiar with doing this type of bulletin boarding, or if we want to try to keep this in-house. I'm not really 100% sure at this point.
So let me ask, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask our County Administrator, Ruth Doyle, is there any other entity that could help community services implement this program?
So a couple of things. I think that Community Services Board has taken up this issue after the resolution was adopted. I think there's some lively conversations going on, separating both what the county controls as far as clinics go and the individual providers. I think that looking at, and we've had discussions about how we might fund something like an app or something like a location on a website that would be paid for. We do have some opioid settlement funds. There's some opportunity for revenue to be used against what this should look like, but the people providing the service, I think as Jay indicated, don't really have their minds wrapped around how that would work. So I believe that the chairman of the CSB is working on this. And I think that we can both ask Jay to take that back to them, and maybe they have some suggestions that would be helpful to us directly from the providers.
Well, I think that would be great. I mean, obviously it's been communicated to the Community Services Board.
Yes. Yes.
Let's ask the chairperson to come in.
I believe he's working on it. We can make that request.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Curran.
So in emergency medicine, on the computer, we have a little thing that says how many beds you have open. Sometimes it comes electronically. Sometimes people call us and say, hey, we have 3 beds open in the ICU. We have this if you need it. It even extends down as far as Onondaga County. So I would think that we could put together something great within the county where it has open appointments in the next 5 days, open appointments the next 10 days, and people from each agency, which they are looking to provide services and have, if they have providers with open appointments, they certainly would like to fill them because the profit margin on any of this is slim. I'm sure they would call us and let us know what they have for providers, what they have for availability, and that it shouldn't take long to reach out. You know, like you could get a community services list or emails that we can send out to, or just at the next community service board say, how would you like to communicate this information of your open availability? And I would think it would take 30 days or less to throw something together in the computer so that Jay can pick it up every day in an email or distribute it to whomever. But I mean, to have 50 some people on a wait list, I know that some of the places have probably that many in the next couple of weeks between different agencies where they would have those folks, just in talking with other professionals. Happy to help out any way I can.
Ms. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was at the last Community Services Board meeting as liaison from this board. And yes, it was presented. The resolution, everybody on the board was made aware of it. And I think as Ms. Doyle pointed out, there are a couple of things. First of all, the other agencies being under our auspices. So Mr. Akers' question to Mr. Ulrich about his authority, I think is important because I'm not sure that they keep orders from him or us for that matter. Secondly, there was a little bit of concern that anything that is posted on the internet or on a bulletin board is fluid. It will change immediately. Somebody sees an appointment available, it's gone. So it takes the makings of an app or something similar to make this in real time. Things go away and then the next person comes in, that appointment's gone. So it's a little more complicated than just if the appointments are up there on a daily basis, it's more like a 30-minute basis or a 2-minute basis that they would be gone. And as Ms. Doyle pointed out, and I've been in contact with with Ray on, and he is addressing it, and there was a very lively conversation about it, but they also some of the other members had some very positive feedback about it too. So I'm sure that that will come back to us and we can evaluate it. Thank you.
Mr. Burke.
Not to lose the focus of this discussion as far as trying to get people seen, but what Jay did in hiring another social worker is probably the most significant piece of getting needed services in a timely manner. That's the underlying cause of all of this. If we had the staff, we had the professional staff that could see these people, there would be no waiting list. And I think Jay alluded to that fact tonight. So again, I'm not that this isn't a good discussion, it is, but I think the most important thing that can be done is what JR did. And the second most important thing is what we can do to try to help in the recruitment of professional mental health staff. We petition Albany for everything else. Let's petition them for some help in trying to develop more professional mental health professional staff here. We've been in the federally designated shortage area for years and years. And it's probably time that we ask for some help in trying to develop our own professionals right here so that we don't have a waiting list.
Anyone else? Mr. Akers and Mr. Kern.
So there's 11 agencies outside of the county that are actually providing mental health services, am I correct? Approximately. So these are not taxpayers' dollars. What you have is these agencies are cannibalizing both our department here at the county and theirs. So the people that are providing their services are going to go where they're rewarded financially and within their work environment itself. This is a supply management app that we're talking about, this process. And I know it's difficult, but it exists. I mean, Walmart set up this function, won't name it mental health, but as far as inventory, what's available, this is supply. We could have a kid at Clarkson put this thing together. And maybe that's what we should do, is actually, that's what this is all it is. You have an opening. And I think Rita explained it very well, what they have for hospital beds. That's all it is. And so if you're comfortable, I'm not comfortable with 53 people looking for help. So I understand that it's busy, and how busy is it? You know, when somebody's contemplating suicide, right? How busy are we? So it needs to be done. It's the direction of the board. We've asked for it. Let's get it done. Figure it out.
Rita, did you want to speak again?
So we could sort of talk to people if you like. We'd like your inventory of open appointments at close of business, or if they prefer, your inventory of open appointments between 8 a.m. and 12 noon today at open of business. It's like a quick little fact sheet over. Someone can look at these, see what we've got on the waiting list, and you know, it might cost us a little bit of money to have people start calling to do this. But if you were running an office and you had to pay all your own bills and you couldn't dip into the taxpayer's pocket to do this, you would have to have somebody filling those appointments every day so that you were still there at the end of the week and the month and the year. And we are here to provide services that other private institutions and businesses and healthcare clinics do not provide, like the methadone clinic where they just couldn't get anybody to do it. But as far as having 50 some people on an open list waiting for appointments, when I could probably make a few phone calls tomorrow morning and find 10 or 15 in a day places to put people. And then we've just got to do this. It's not reasonable to know that, you know, you're someplace and people are putting up, you know, now taking new patients, and we somehow are not utilizing that. Is not what we wrote, not what people came up with in that resolution. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Haggard?
Very quickly, I want to follow up on what Mr. Burke said about this being an area of great need. It also is an area which we should have in our marketing when we're looking for people. But if they come and stay for a certain amount of time, there's loan forgiveness on their student loans. And that is a big selling point for people that have to go to graduate school to get the kind of degrees that are necessary for us.
Anybody else? Seeing none, Jay, anything further that you want to say?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move along then to Colleen Munger at Public Health. The first resolution is authorizing the chair to send an amendment to the contract with the New York State Department of Health for the Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs Program Grant. Moved by Mr. Denisha, seconded by Ms. First.
Thank you. So this is a grant that we've had for a while. We're in a 5-year cycle right now. It started in 2020, goes through 2025. Our funding amount had been in the total of $26,866 for this next grant cycle and through the remainder of the grant year, so through 2025. Our funding was increased by $37,487, bringing the total of our grant to $64,353. In addition, we also now have to have a 0.5 FTE to be on this grant. So we are looking to amend our contract to accept the additional funding.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. The next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign an amendment to the contract with Health Research Incorporated, New York State Department of Health, for epidemiology and laboratory capacity, COVID-19 enhanced detection. Moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Sheriff.
So this is another amendment. So our current, one of our current COVID contracts is set to expire March 31st of 2023. The state and HRI have extended that throughout December 31st, 2023. There is no additional funding. It's just an extension for the counties that have not expended all of their money. And that also allows us to use our COVID funding on any of our monkeypox activities. If those activities are items that we've done under COVID, we do not have to modify our budget at all. So if we provide vaccinations for COVID, we can provide monkeypox vaccinations. It's just if we were to do something different, we would have to do a budget modification for that. So we have approximately $100,000 unaccounted for left in the grant to be used throughout the remainder of the next year. Some of our money is still in the grant, just we haven't received our vehicle yet with emergency services of the sheriff's office.
Any questions or any comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Preschool transportation update.
So this is one of the first years that we have actually got some of our districts on board with our preschool transportation. As you know, we've had some issues with transportating and per student and the increase in costs. So just to show, I believe you guys all have the graphs. The first graph is from our summer program. So the summer program is 6 weeks long. So 4 weeks were this year, we're in July, 2 weeks in August. And you can see the breakdown by what the cost is for the school districts, per student, and parents. Just to give a little bit more numbers into it, the districts transported 27 students for a total of $15,930. And per student transported 2 students for $11,210. And then we had 8 parents transport for $3,536 just for the month of July. So the average for the summer cost of transportation per child per month, parent cost is about $375 per student. For students is about $4,204, and the districts are about $475 per student. And that was just for the summer months. We haven't had most of the schools bill us for anything for this school year yet. So I don't have
numbers. So the next one is an estimate that we're anticipating for the upcoming school year based off of summer month and summer attendance. The kids don't always attend every day, so it's they only get paid for transportation for the days that the kids attend the classrooms. So those are the numbers that I just kind of read. This year, parents are transporting 12 students. First student is transporting 13 students, and districts are currently transporting 30 students. So that's a huge cost saving right there to have the districts transporting that many students instead of first student. So just a few other statistics. Out of all of our districts, 16 have signed contracts. 2 districts are currently providing busing without contracts, and one of those districts is not currently billing. 6 districts are just because, so out of those 16 districts, 6 districts total are providing busing. The state rate for the school, so we have one school that has not signed the contract that buses and bills, so they get paid the state rate. That was just increased to $43.32 per student per day. Our current contract rate is the school is $45 per student or a maximum of $350 per bus. So we have one school district that runs a separate bus to pick up most of their kids, so they max out their bus limit. We are going to be looking to bring a resolution next month to you to do a potential contract amendment to increase the rates, as the state just increased their rate to try to entice the school districts to continue to provide services in the next year, as first student is struggling to meet the demand to transport the students that they already have with 6.5 buses.
Any questions or any comments? Mr. Burke?
Is any of this reimbursed by the state or federal government?
We get 59.5% back of what we pay out through our Article 6 funding. Yes.
If I could just follow up, this has been something I want to commend Jolene for her activity, building on a relationship that began during COVID. And I think this also kept the department in touch with the school districts. And now out of that has come one of our biggest spends in public health, when we continue to petition the state to remove the county from the equation without success. Now Jolene has been able to pull along the school districts to the conversation. And now, understanding the impact financially, we also want to make it viable for them as well, because this is certainly in our recommendation, our thought process, and our review, the way to go. So I want to commend Jolene for getting them online with this, and we want to maintain that relationship. Thank you, Jolene.
If I may.
What else? Desire?
I'm sorry.
No?
Yes, I would like to say something. I want to commend the department. First of all, I read this and I was made aware that the Cornell Cooperative Extension awarded the Public Health a Friend of the Extension Award for the department's COVID-19 vaccination response, especially for the outreach to the local farmers and their employees to ensure they had access to the vaccine. Congratulations to your department. That's great.
Thank you. It was definitely a department effort, and we were in complete surprise when the Cornell Cooperative Executive Director informed us that we would be receiving this award this year. So it's been a pleasure to work with the agriculture community, and we have some more upcoming work with them in the future as well to try to increase some of the programs I believe we used to have in the past with going out to farm work, but they're such a big part of the community. It's nice to be able to work with that population.
Mr. Denisha and then Ms. Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Ms. Hager, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was at the Extension's annual meeting October 18th when your Centers County Public recognized. Unfortunately, Jolene wasn't able to be there. She was with the Extension's our Extension Director's wife at a training. But I just want to say that you know, probably a year ago, Pat Pat Ames and I had a conversation from public health. And it was in regards to the vaccinations in public health going around the farms in the areas. And Pat said to me, he said, you know, he said, I know Jolene's mother, she's probably not going to want to hear this. Pat said that that wouldn't happen with Jolene. She said she was the one that could pull it off. She did pull it off. And, so we're very grateful to Jolene, the entire public health department. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question is about the polio vaccine and monkeypox. Do you know, could you tell us about how much we have in stock at any given time? Do they have to ask ahead of time for it, or is it something that you keep?
We have both in stock. Well, we have limited adult polio because that's typically a childhood vaccination. So, but we have not had any requests for adult polio in our area. We do have some though, but given the fact that we haven't had a lot, we have plenty on hand for the children because it's one of the normal childhood immunizations that we do give. For the Jynneos vaccine, we have a good supply on hand. We've hosted clinics at 3 out of the 4 colleges so far, and our 4th is set at Clarkson on November 1st, and it'll be a combined Jynneos and COVID booster clinic for a couple of reasons. One, we'll have the staff there so we can do both, and 2, if there's any stigma around it, people can feel free to come and get whichever vaccine they prefer without somebody knowing what they're getting. We also have Jynneos clinics on Mondays and Fridays. So in our office. So if somebody wants to just come in and get it during our normal vaccination, nobody knows what you're coming in for because everybody's getting whatever they need for vaccinations. And then Friday is a very private setting in our office, so that's the only thing that we're getting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Jolene, I'd just like to say that ever since I've been on this board, and for a while, this has been an issue with the preschools, the transportation. And it's been a tremendous drain on the finances of the county. And I got to say that prior county administrator and this county administrator worked diligently trying to get the schools on board with this. You have, and your department have made a major coup in getting this, believe me. And I thank you for it. I congratulate you for it. I think it took some proactive thinking on your part. I don't know that anybody came to you and said, gee, we'd really like you to do this. You did it. You got it done. You got it started, I hope. And hey, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been definitely a pleasure to work with the superintendents over the last year. I was actually just talking to one of them today. Like, I miss meeting with you guys because with COVID, we met so often. So I'm welcome back anytime, but it's been a good partnership because it really does benefit the students more. It starts to build that relationship with the schools and getting them used to riding the buses that they will ride once they switch from the special pre-K to regular kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've arranged just from this graph here to transport 4 times a student as first student did at a quarter of the cost. That's impressive.
Thank you.
And I think we can go. We're all done. We'll move along to the vacancy review with the county administrator.
So I wasn't here. Typically, I provide you with my short statistics and update on an overall county picture for vacancies and operations. But I'll do that real quick tonight, and then we'll move on to the departments here to present to you. So we have currently, at the beginning of October, 55 positions or 6% of our workforce that were in transition, either being considered by vacancy committee or not yet filled. We have an 83% immediate fill rate. And if you recall, in September on your vacancy report, there were 3 positions in social services that were placed on hold. Now, typically that would automatically go to the next vacancy, which would have been considered this time. But the reason that we placed them on hold was to give the medical services supervisor, which is a position we just brought back, you'll recall, after about 10 years without it, to have an opportunity, now that she's moved into that position, to do some analysis, to look at the workloads, and to come back with her review and make the request, so that there was some data to back up the positions. Now, while I can appreciate that 100% positions may not get the scrutiny that others do, I still think having a new supervisor come in and make recommendations based on information that they have is more valuable and certainly worth the time. So we received that back. Joe shared that with me this afternoon. I'll take a look at it, but it's highly likely you'll see that on our next vacancy review or a revisit. That being said, we have 7 departments considered this month, 3 we took a look at last week. There's 3 more tonight, and then highway will be the only vacancy review for finance committee consideration. And that being said, our first up this evening is community services. I think Jay is still with us. Hi, Jay. Go ahead and present.
Yep. We are asking for a create and fill for a keyboard specialist. As you know, we now have 6 clinics. 2 of them are satellites, so 3 main and 2 satellites. Or we have 4 addiction clinics. We have 1 mental health clinic and an OTP. So we have 6 clinics, and right now they're all centrally located at the Canton Clinic. They being the keyboard specialist, which we have 3. So it's becoming, more and more difficult to meet the demand in terms of the phone calls, the checking in, the checking of insurances, and so forth. They also do some reporting, some pause reporting for Oasis. So we've really been struggling, particularly when we have somebody that's taking vacation and another person calls in sick. We're putting program directors up there. We're putting, some other ancillary staff up there to try to, fill the gaps. But we're just getting to a volume now with the OTP that we feel we just need to ask for a keyboard specialist to help out. Now, this keyboard specialist is also going to be the designated person that will man the front desk or the customer support that Saturday morning. When we're open for the Saturday dosing between 7 in the morning and 12 in the afternoon.
Questions for Jay on the create and fill? Okay, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Office for the Aging, and Andrea is with us. Good evening. We cannot hear you.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
Much. Go ahead.
Just a little tech issue there. So first up, we have a program coordinator position. This position works within our New York Connects program, and that is our entry point for services. So when an older adult, a caregiver, or family member calls, the first people they get are our New York Connect staff who do all the training, assessment, really determining what the needs of the clients are. And this position is within our 2022 budget. It goes out to health fairs, doing presentations in the community, trying to make older adults as aware as possible of the many services we provide.
Questions for Andrea? Okay, next one.
Okay, the second position is a senior account clerk. This position will be open due to an upcoming retirement of a long-term employee. This position, again, is responsible for processing all of our state aid claims, paying our incoming invoices, managing cost share between 4 different programs, records management and payroll. And they do a lot with our nutrition program as well, maintaining our rosters. So this position is also within our 2022 budget.
Questions on this position? Okay, thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, everyone.
And finally, this evening we have social services with 1 position. I'll emphasize for 1. Tonight.
Good evening again. I have for you a employment and training counselor position that we are requesting. This position works with recipients of TA and SNAP, providing some mandated training services. They work to develop individual employment plans, make services referrals, supervise job search activities to make sure that that's happening, help develop those job opportunities for people, and provide the mandated services that are required to go along with receiving the services. This position works with approximately 150 clients.
Questions for the commissioner?
Thank you.
And that concludes vacancy review.
We'll move to the county administrator.
A few items to catch you up on and share with you tonight. I sent along a letter of support to the Development Authority of the North Country for an application they're completing for the National Telecommunications and Information Administration Middle Mile Grant Program. They are partnering with National Grid, and my understanding of the task and the charge of the board now is any and every way that we can improve our broadband in the county is certainly something we want to be supportive of. As you may be aware, the Development Authority already maintains crucial fiber optic infrastructure, in this building included. National Grid provides the synergies. They're looking to use some of their pre-existing infrastructure to decrease the cost and go further with their dollar. So I will find out. I do not know the turnaround time on the application, but I wanted you to know that letter of support went in to be submitted with their application. I do want to congratulate Adult Protective Services. As you know, and as we have been providing you with an update when audits come and when audits are complete, I'll provide that information to you on Google Drive so you can take a look at the full document. But we did, as Commissioner indicated, relocate the staff recently. I also want to give our buildings and ground staff who were able to turn that around in a very short period of time, who made it happen very well. But there are some synergies in the Human Services Center with the Office for the Aging and with Social Services Employment that we hope will assist Adult Protective in making the response time, again, less and less for those folks in need. Wanted to remind you or give you the update since the board meeting that the work on the courthouse that you've approved has begun. We have required that ingress and egress, as you know, we have very active courts now that they have resumed all operations. At all times, they were priming the 1993 courthouse, which is the newer section on the parking lot side, that cleaning of the facade, the painting, and also caring for the window area. We will be leveling the sidewalks and also taking care of that planter area in front. So I will keep you posted and share pictures with you digitally as they're available. This Wednesday, October 26th, we are returning to an EAP sponsored health or wellness fair. We haven't held one since prior to the pandemic. This is the 37th annual. It will be 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. with vendors coming on site to the Human Services Center. We're going to be shuttling our staff from this area, Court Street, from all of our buildings over to that building if they'd like. And I do annually, when we have it, provide 2 hours of leave time so that folks can attend the wellness fair, spend time, and then return to their duties. Also, to have a little fun, we're having a pumpkin decorating, carving or painting contest of sorts with an email of a photo. Release time is not granted for this, and pumpkins are not provided. But we're hoping to announce on Halloween our top 3 both decorated and carved pumpkins, something fun for staff to take part in. Want to just celebrate our risk manager for a minute. Both our assistant administrator, Dylan Soper, and Jody Wenzel have been working with the compliancy group since the district days. Dylan picked it up and then has since handed it off as he's taken on a bigger role in purchasing, working with compliance, generally speaking, in community services and in public health related to HIPAA. And that being said, risk managers completed for St. Lawrence County all necessary tasks. These included things like security self-audits and HIPAA privacy standard self-audits, culminating now in both the certification and the 2022 HIPAA Seal of Compliance for St. Lawrence County. You'll see that displayed on our website, and we'll be adding it to our intranet. So it is a lift. We're also looking to expand upon that to other departments like Office for the Aging, Social Services, Human Resources, to get more of a policy type repository available to all of our staff to comply with on an annual basis. So we're pretty excited about having that, both the seal of compliance and having that complete. The last component of that will be the Board of Legislators training. That we started last year in December. It will follow operations this year and services. It's a combined meeting. And he will also provide a summary of the activities of the year on that evening. So then that will complete the training for St. Lawrence County. I did want to ask and certainly understand if there's concern, but you heard tonight from Community Services about the current hand count and the current challenges related to 1011. So while we continue to bring you information, I think you can hear in his voice and in his words, his concern with the accuracy of your monthly report. So if there's no objection, I'd like to ask for a 1-month reprieve for Community Services so that they can work through the 1011 challenges and come back to you in December, both with the information that happened in that time, but also so that they don't have to focus on that and they can focus on the other information to get things off the ground for 1011. Is there any objection to that? And moving in that direction for a month's time.
Mr. Aker, does that include the waiting list?
We could ask for that to be shared regardless. And to that point, I would just say, if I could, one of the things I think that Legislator Reagan, who sponsored the resolution, was impressed by was following and the tabling of that resolution, there was a better conversation each week about who's waiting, how many spots were open, and how many people were moved in and off of the wait list. So I think that's something that I'll talk with our DCS about, that Jay certainly understands the importance of, and getting to that, whatever it looks like in its final form, way to communicate with the public. But what I would say just to the discussion that occurred is if people are in crisis, they're seen. No one of those 53 people reported in crisis because they would be brought in. The providers can provide us with the information about available appointments. However, we can't force anyone to take those appointments regardless. And lastly, I would just mention that getting that information out, and it will change, isn't impossible. So I don't want that to come through in either Jay's comments or Community Service Board's reaction. It's something that will make happen. We just want to be thoughtful and intentional about it because the folks in crisis looking for those should actually have an avenue that will work to get care. So I did just want to revisit that for a moment, and we'll be back to you in December. We'll bring you the wait list, but in December with the reports updated. And then the last item I wanted to mention tonight. Question?
Regarding what she was just talking about.
Just a positive side of all the Community Services, there was no waiting list for all the other
addiction services. That's right. So they were all zeros.
There is some good out of that.
There is.
It was hard to find.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just quickly to the same thing that Ruth was bringing up. I didn't want to get the impression that there was pushback. I think the Community Services Board, if I can characterize it this way, understands that this is coming from a very good place. It's just a matter of logistics at this point. And I think I have discussed it with Ruth, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Akers.
I think public health should be involved in this.
I'm sure she appreciates your
suggestion.
She's
I'll talk with her about that. She will always smile.
She had her hand up. I want to help. I want to help.
Other hand.
She did such a great job on transportation. I'm sure.
That is what we do with talent, St. Lawrence County. We smother them. That's right. Yeah.
Give them more work.
But overall, a better conversation has been had since even the Governor Farrell, remember, that conversation took place about being aware of the numbers, being open and understanding of what the providers have. The Jay has to trust those numbers. We aren't sending auditors into each of these providers, and certainly there's a business model of them having and taking those appointments.
Is not though the problem lack of qualified people for us to be able to hire or for them to apply for
Absolutely.
Positions. So to me, that's been an ongoing problem for years here.
Agreed.
How are we going to, or how do we attack that kind of a problem? We have gone to the universities, okay? We've gone to the hospitals. We've tried rating other providers. And we're still trying to find ways to do this. And secondly, we can't even get our billing straight. So, I mean, we've got two big problems to deal with. And I don't know is we've got the horsepower to deal with them, to be honest with you. I don't have a feeling that it's going to be a good outlook, to be honest with you. I hope it will. I'll do whatever I can to make sure that it is. And I've already think I've recruited some licensed social worker.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see about that. But I think we've got a major problem with this.
And more people need than ever.
And the only reason I bring that out is so that we're all aware of it. This isn't going to go away overnight. This is going to take some time.
Absolutely.
Mr. Smithers.
Just to make sure that we understand this, you mentioned that we have a counselor starting November 1st. Is this in the area of mental services or is it broader than that?
Yes. Social worker. Yes. So that's where the 53 was. And he thought most of that caseload will be absorbed. Yeah. Not to say that others won't be coming in behind that number.
That's correct.
So one of the things that we can't compete with is the amount of money that's being put out as businesses. You know, if you look at any of the starting rates from the psych center to just say St. Joe's, it's higher than what you pay, even the travelers. And the other thing is you can have a social worker that comes in, that's great. We usually do 3 or 4 visits, prescriber. But then you still need a prescriber that's willing to take the patient out. So New York State did have a discussion, I guess, with some of the colleges, because some of the colleges this year are running programs instead of fall and then spring, they're allowing their psych nurse practitioners and some of their social work programs to go through the summer to accelerate when they're keeping up with any of their issues. I don't believe it's a formal program, but I've seen it talked about online.
And then lastly, I have for you our schedule for next week. We will have the 3rd quarter financial update for 2022. We'll have an update on the ARPA funds, and I believe 2 resolutions will come before you for consideration. And then I will present the 2023 tentative budget and provide you with a schedule to review, but also that includes an executive summary, as well as the schedule in 2 forms. And so I invite you to think about, I don't think we need a resolution this evening, but we can do what we have done the last few years and have the jurisdictional committees provide an opportunity for the 2023 budget. I've taken to pulling some data together for each of those areas of the budget and talking you through some of the high points. And then any questions that you have, all departments that report to that jurisdictional committee are present and able to answer questions. By present, I mean virtually or in person. And then we can schedule our public hearing and special and board meeting to vote on the budget. We also, in years past, had a schedule where all departments present, and I will bring to you a schedule that will include Mondays and Wednesdays and allow time for each department to come before you and present. And the board can make a determination on how they'd like to proceed.
What's that? Okay, thank you. We'll move to committee reports. Board of Health, Mr. Akers.
We just met for the 2nd time in live. So we had a discussion about monkeypox, a lot about lead reporting and the accuracy of getting statistics and how many people that were actually being tested in that 0 to 5 years of age. It was mainly the most gist of it. Not much discussion about COVID.
Thank you. CDP Board of Directors, Mr. Sheridan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The CDP Board of Directors met on the 19th of October, and the representative from Crescendo Consulting Group presented the results of this community needs assessment. And the board had the opportunity to ask questions and ask for information, certain data. After the approval of the CNA, another representative from EFPR Group presented the board with its annual audit findings. And it shows that this organization that we're talking about is financially healthy, and the federal audit compliance issues focused on Head Start, and there were no compliance issues there. The audit presented was a clean audit and with no findings. The board accepted the resignation of Ben Davis, who was on the board of directors with regret. This leaves a vacancy on the finance committee as well, so that position is going to have to be filled. The first committee that reported was the finance committee, and the community services block grant is typically, I guess, it's usually overspent, and then it's going on again this time. But it's something that's unusual. 2 action items were presented. One was the changes to the cost allowance or allocation plan. Admin and finance salaries are now allocated based on actual time dedicated to individual departments. Previously, it was an annual average. The antivirus is now an annual charge. And the second item for approval was fiscal policy. Changes included who takes deposits to the bank, as well as location of credit cards and title changes. Both plans were approved. Then there was the membership committee. The membership committee voted in two board members. One for low income and the other representing Head Start Council. Discussion of the prospective board members was held, and then under the personnel committee, resignation of Dr. Ben Davis was approved with regret. The executive director gave a report. It reported that Head Start has several vacancies to be filled. There is one vacancy within the main office. Head Start's children enrollment is increasing weekly. Head Start grant for 2023 was submitted. An air purifier was installed in Messina HS Center, with 2 more being ordered for other centers. Weatherization is completing an inventory review at this time. The Housing Choice Voucher has hired a housing inspector. Neighborhood centers expended CARES Act funding and beyond. They installed cameras at the main office as well as the Governor Neighborhood Center. An infrastructure grant was submitted to replace carpeting in the main office. There are no pending lawsuits. I could go on, but I think I've said enough.
Before you start again, Community Services Board, Mr. Hacker.
Okay, Community Services. We met on October 4th, and it was the first time I had met many of the people in person. It was our first live meeting since I joined this board. As Mr. Ulrich mentioned, there was a presentation on rides to recovery from Frank Doldo at the Volunteer Transportation Center. He went into a lot of detail on that. I also want to mention that there is a new solar bus stop on Munson Street in Potsdam, which is right behind Pizza Hut, if anybody's interested. Our next meeting is on November 1st, and that's my report.
Thank you. Office of the Aging Advisory Board, Mr. Ganesha.
Chairman, we have not met since the last report. Next meeting is Monday, November 7th at 10 a.m. I want to put another plug in for volunteers for home delivered meal routes. Severe shortage. The number of clients is increasing. The number of volunteers is going the other way. So anyone that has any time, a couple hours a day, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, whatever, time you can share would be greatly appreciated.
Youth Advisory Board, Mr. Manelli.
Thank you. Our last meeting was on Thursday, September 22nd, and it was in person. Unfortunately, it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I wasn't able to attend. However, I do have some highlights. They discussed some members whose terms are ready to expire, moving towards an in-person meeting format quarterly as opposed to monthly virtually. The 2 resolutions that came before you this evening about the youth development program funding as well as the youth sports and opportunity funding. So they discussed that. And then on October 16th, we had our youth committee meeting. And during that, they were able to vote in a new chairman and co-chairman and set some initiatives for and goals for this upcoming year. And working on universal presentation for sextortion and suicide awareness that will be pushed out to each of the school districts for them to use as they like, with the youth committee members taking the lead on that. And then QPR training that they'll be doing with the youth committee members. Next Youth Advisory Board meeting is in person on the 1st of November at 5:30, and youth committee meeting is the 6th of November at 4 o'clock.
Thank you. Moving to old or new business. Is there any old or new business? Mr. Forsyth.
This is new business, I believe. Verizon towers in the Lisbon area. I've never heard so many calls. It's not only an inconvenience, it's a safety issue, I believe now. They say when you call Verizon, what happens is someone calls me on my cell phone, I can hear them fine. They hear 1 of 4 words from me. And it's the same with everybody. And now they're saying it's from Lisbon to Malone. So no one gets a straight answer. Some say it's 5G, some days say it's going to be 4 days, some will say it's going to be January. All I know is if you need to make a call out, you're going to have a hell of a time getting someone to answer it. Most people operate on cell phones now, so I don't know how to, if, you know, Matt or somebody can give an answer to what's going on, but no one gets the same answer to us. So it's a huge concern, and it is frustrating beyond belief. But I can't imagine being on a 911 call, trying to make a call, and someone not being able to hear you.
How long?
And over a week.
A week.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's rampant.
Can we ask Verizon to come to our next meeting at our committee meeting and address this concern so that they understand that this is a issue of importance, and you know, if they decline to come or decline to answer our questions, can we make a formal complaint through the Public Service Commission and have them investigate this? I mean, I think the you know, there is a agency that oversees Verizon, and if Verizon won't cooperate with us nicely, we should take it to the next level. And you know, this obviously is, others have said, is just unacceptable and needs to be addressed.
I know what I find out.
Anybody else? John?
I think we should skip the first step, Jim, and go right to the second step. Lodge the complaint, because there's been enough individuals that have screamed about this. So I think whatever we can do to get Public Service Commission's attention, we should do that. Steve might have some ideas. I should say.
Have any good ideas? No, he doesn't. I think I want to walk.
You didn't. My undergrad happens to be in telephony and telemetry, and I've worked with the FCC and the regulating agencies. So, yes, I have.
Thank you. Any other old or new business? So now we have need for executive session.
We do.
For
Litigation, personnel, or the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, negotiations, and one appointment.
And just a second, as we move into executive session. Right. Unless there is some negativity from the board, I'd like to see Mr. Sieber attend our executive session.
No objection.
Okay. Objections. Okay. So a motion to go into executive session by Mr. Smithers, second by Mr. Forsythe. All in favor?
I'll tell you, they say more than Charlie Brown's teacher that you don't want to be bothered with, but they are on my desk or on the table in there. If you want to stop in and take a look at them, we have done the scoring. Kelly, Dylan, and I are the scoring committee. So we'll bring that to your attention next month.
What was that expression? Charlie Brown's teacher?
Yeah, no, you need to listen to Charlie Brown's teacher. Look it up.
I mean, I think I missed it.
Hey.
Dude, that's the benefit of being.
No further business, the motion you adjourn.
Yeah.
So, Rita, second by Rex.